Well, this is truly a great honor for me to be able to be the introducer of the next candidate, Bob Kenny. Bob graduated from Osage High School in 1978, where he placed fourth in the state tournament that year. He took a couple years off before going to college, and eventually went to Buena Vista and graduated from Buena Vista in 1984. He was a qualifier in his junior year for the NCAA Division III. He was coached by one of our previous inductees, Al Baxter. His career he's traveled quite a bit over his coaching and his athletic directorship tenure. He started out he went to 1 year, he coached out in Arizona, came back to Osage and was a volunteer coach for 2 years there. Then he went to Maquoketa Valley, where he was there for 2 years. He came back and went to Western Iowa to Estherville, and was actually there from 1989 to 1998. His biggest contribution to the sports came to after that 98 season. He then moved, 20 miles? Almost 20 miles to Emmetsburg, where he became the coach of the Emmetsburg IWHOFs. During that time, he won 6 individual state titles. So he was there for 8 years, 9 years, and he won 6 individual state titles, or his teams did. They won 2 dual team titles, and in that time he brought home 16 team trophies for second, third, or fourth. So he was a very excellent coach. After that, he went to Dowling Catholic in Des Moines and was the dean of students for 1 year. And then he came back to the Northeast Iowa, to Mason City, where he has been the athletic director for the Mason City Mohawks since 2007. His wife is here tonight with him, Sue, and his 2 children, Adam and Danielle. I would like to present Mr. Robert Kenny.
Thank you very much, Bill. And just so Tolly knows, it was Bill that had those printed up. Just so, everybody was saying it wasn't them, but I just thought you needed to know it was Bill. Sorry, Bill.
Throw me under the bus.
Absolutely. As many bad calls as you made over there. That's just not true. That's not true. Oh, well, yeah. Well, congratulations to all the other inductees, and thank you very much, everybody, selection committee and the state of Iowa, for even recognizing me for this honor. It's really humbling. It's really humbling, and you just feel you're doing what you love your whole life. You always wanted to do something, and you know what? It doesn't matter really if you win state titles or you don't win state titles. It's what you teach kids. Do you teach them to make weight, or you say, oh man, you're a quarter over close enough? And that's a way of life. Either they're going to be men or they're not. There's no in between. It's standing up here, I think always of the rough days, I get to Maquoketa Valley and they have probably, 17 kids out for wrestling, and a couple kids actually can do a double, and some of them know how to, do a switch. And, the biggest thing then for me was just to get the kids out, get them out for wrestling, and I think that's one of the things I'm probably most proud of is when I did have those struggling teams, and in a town that really wasn't known for wrestling, my biggest goal was, come on guys, get out for wrestling, and that's one of the things that I did achieve is getting kids out and getting them to be part of the program. But I can remember probably the darkest day in Bob Kenny history was we went up to Owatonna, and I was at Estherville, and I had 3 really studs. I mean, these kids were good enough to wrestle with anybody. Well, of course, all 3 of them get hurt, and they don't even go. And so I'm up there, and by the end of the day, we're getting beat up so bad. I mean, it's like, oh, geez. Other teams are borrowing me their JV wrestlers so I can fill out my team. Oh man, I was so happy when that day was over. And we're walking down the steps. My assistant coach rolls into the back of me, and I go, "Quit messing around." He goes, "Oh, I think I broke my leg." Yeah, sure enough. He broke his leg. So that was kind of one of the worst days, I'd say. I was very fortunate to get to Emmitsburg and be in a community that not only took a lot of pride in their wrestling, but they took a lot of pride in all their athletics and academics also. I had parents from Emmitsburg and Armstrong and wrestlers that were very, very committed. We had kids from Armstrong that they'd have to drive 35, 40 minutes one way just to get to practice. And that's the kind of dedication that I got from the kids. It's always great to see kids that you've had through the years. I've got Alex Brandenburg here that I'm so proud of. He's coaching the Lake Mills Bulldogs and doing such a great job there. The thing that you look back at and the biggest thanks, of course, are to your family. The long list of moves that we also moved within those. Like we moved to Dyersville to go when I was at Makota Valley. Well, then we had to move to the metropolis of Earlville, Iowa after that. And, she's packed up every time, whatever you want to do, Bob. And, you can't ever replace the dedication and the love of a good woman, and that's what I got. I've got my family here, my son and daughter. My daughter's always been a part, right from, I'm sure some of you older guys remember if you had daughters, they're in their little cheerleading skirts and they're jumping around and they're dragging that huge pillow around behind them, and a lot of good memories. And Danielle was always my stats person and always one of my biggest fans, and my kids were at the state tournament. How old was Danielle? 5 months?
2.
No, you weren't. November. Dang it, I was wrong again. And then Adam, Adam gave me one of those thrills. We had a kid that didn't make it to the state tournament, and we were expecting him to get, I know no other wrestling coaches ever do this, but how you count out the points, who's going to place, and you pretty much got everything figured out down to the T. But I had a kid that I thought would get 3rd or 4th in the state. Well, he didn't even make it to state that year. And my son was a senior, and he had how they always say, boy, he got a bad draw. I tell you what, there's no such thing as a bad draw. There's just a bad attitude. You just got to go out and, take it. What better time to beat somebody when they're nervous at the state tournament? That's what I always said. And he must have been listening once or twice because he made it all the way to the state finals, and he was a runner-up that year. And we won the state championship that year by 2.5 points. So couldn't get any closer than that. It's just an impression that you get from kids, and that you hope that someday that that they'll give back. I feel like I've just been very, very fortunate to be the coach and be a part of wrestling through the state of Iowa, and meet so many good people. I look around this room, and how many fraternities can you go to that you can look around the room and terrible with names, but 90% of the people you've seen somewhere in a gym through the years, their brothers or sisters, or watched them wrestle on the big stage like Tally. I knew him. So I just want to make sure that I want to let everybody know that no matter what kind of impact anybody makes on the on anything, you always hope that that you leave something a little bit better than when you entered it. And I feel like that about wrestling, is that I'm a much better person for wrestling and for being part of the wrestling community. The last story I want to tell, and I've been saving my thank you to my sister and my nephew's here for, he wrestles for Osage, and that's the only place I've ever got booed is over my own hometown in Canada. Twice. But I can't believe I remember that. I've got my brother-in-law Randy here and my brother Tom. Now, promise this is the last thing I'll say and then I'll be done. But I have an uncle and his name is Pat, and he's from Osage, and he's perfect thing is the truth never gets in the way of a good story. However, every year he would come to the state tournament, and my brother would have to put him up for a week while I was coaching and didn't have to. And I'm just say this much. Thank you, Tom. He calls me, or I call him every week for 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the state tournament. I wouldn't hear a word. He'd be so mad at me. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody.